This morning, we're continuing talking about meditation, and the talk this morning will be focused on right and wrong meditation practices. This is very valuable, and you'll see why the information is so valuable through some of the stories I'm going to be sharing with you of episodes or events that have happened to people that haven't followed the rules and regulations of right meditation, and leading to, in some cases, disastrous results. So, anyway, I wanted to, in these continuing Sundays of talking about meditation, I felt it was necessary to talk about right and wrong meditation practices, because these are things that most people don't think about. Even meditators, don't consider. But we must. So let me begin. First of all, to think that meditation is a gift. It is a gift to those of us that have dedicated our lives to service. Just think about that. It's a gift. If meditation is a gift, we have to open that gift and then use it properly and not just throw it away, right? So think about that. Meditation is a gift. It is a gift that brings recognized and sometimes unrecognized gifts to the meditator. Some of these gifts that we find through the process of meditation actually strengthens our soul. It strengthens our spirituality in such a way that we're going to find ourselves engaged in creative works that would normally not be possible. Can you imagine this? Those of us that have been meditating for years may not even recognize that. So again, this is a gift to be grateful for. If you are a meditator, be grateful that you are, because of these gifts, whether they're recognized or unrecognized. You're going to find your life more creative than you would have if you had not stepped onto the path of meditation. Meditation is a great means to nurture your subtle bodies and establish an equilibrium and balance to your whole system. So here's a clue. If your life, if your personality, if your whole physical, emotional, mental, spiritual mechanism is in a state of equilibrium and balance, then you know that you are meditating right or correctly. However, meditation is dangerous when it is done when your brain and your body are exhausted. So there's our first instruction. If your brain and if your body are exhausted, don't meditate. If you were not able to sleep during the night, if you were awake and then went to sleep and awake and went to sleep, don't meditate that next day. Don't meditate. Sometimes I will tell a student to stop meditating for a few weeks or even a few months. Some will follow my suggestion, others will not, thinking that's foolish. Meditation is a discipline that spiritual students must practice, but out of their ignorance, they don't realize that their brain is like a truck or a car. You cannot overload your brain and your body without putting yourself in danger. Sometimes, because of circumstances in your life, meditation is going to activate certain fires in your mechanism that will overload your health system and cause dysfunctions. So I'm going to repeat this because it's so important for you to recognize the effects of when certain fires are ignited and your body is not able to handle it. So meditation is going to activate certain fires in your mechanism that will overload your health system and cause your health to dysfunction. Sometimes a meditator will be engaged in wrong meditation. And when this happens, they're going to cause serious damage to their neurological system, causing disorder to their brain and nervous system. Sometimes meditation practice is best to be put on hold for a while due to certain prescribed medications that the person is on. And these exceptions are why it is wise to have a spiritual teacher, an experienced meditator who will watch over you until such a time that a mentor is no longer required or needed. Now, in meditation, a person has a basic foundation and direction. All of their thoughts and ideas are going to be in harmony with the welfare of all beings. In meditation, a person tries to find the truth, tries to find the goodness, tries to find freedom, as well as the ways and means to spread them. The ways and means to educate people and help them be good and creative members of society. Now, it is important not to meditate for more than 10 or 15 minutes a day. We've heard that, we hear that, we've read that over and over and over again. We've read that. We may not have asked ourselves why. If the person exaggerates and tries to meditate for 1 or 2 hours at a time, they are going to make their brain cells tired. And this is going to cause themselves some trouble. I have many examples of those who did not follow these simple rules and who did indeed find themselves in such trouble. This is why I wanted to include in these Sunday talks about meditation, the dangers of meditation. Okay, never meditate in a polluted place where there are lots of odors or chemicals or even noise. Do not meditate in polluted places. Doing meditation in a place laden with pollution or noise overloads your brain, an entire nervous system, and will lead you into trouble. This is interesting. Meditation uses a great amount of oxygen from your blood. Did you know this? Yeah. It uses a great amount of oxygen from the blood. When you live in a place where your air is not pure, your lungs cannot charge your body with enough oxygen, and your mind slowly becomes a slave of post-hypnotic suggestions, negative emotions, habits, and urges. Meditation in polluted or noisy locations makes your mind center and spin. Meditating in polluted or noisy locations makes your mind center and spin around the tendencies of your lower self, and your mind eventually burns itself out. Remember that meditation is concentration and intense thinking. Concentration and intense thinking. And thus, when you are meditating in a polluted place, this is the result. This is what happens to your mind. It eventually burns itself out. If you have not listened to my past 2 Sunday talks and meditation, try to find the time to do so and just go to White Mountain's YouTube video account. You can go onto the White Mountain Education website on the left-hand side of the menu, and also across the bottom of the home page, you can find that little symbol that says YouTube. Just click on it. It will take you to the last few Sundays. And it would be good for you to review, what's being said about meditation. So those who live in areas heavily polluted with noise and chemicals witness insanity around them. When your food is polluted, you feel sick. Mental food can also be polluted by noise and various chemicals. Isn't that interesting that mental food can be polluted by noise and various chemicals? Thoughts and ideas are substantial waves which can be weakened, distorted, disturbed, or even dissolved by noise, like chaos, and chemical pollution. The next, there are harmful types of meditation that are really dangerous to your mental health. If a person meditates to open their third eye, to raise their kundalini, to awaken their etheric centers, to develop clairaudience or clairvoyance, or to come in contact with the dead, they're going to be on a dangerous path. Our centers and psychic powers should not be forced to grow prematurely. On the spiritual path, we are told to develop patience, right? Patience is one of those very important virtues. To cultivate virtues and to live a life of service and beauty. And when this is accomplished, then our psyche is going to bloom just like lilies in the field, beautifully, naturally, and beneficially. So patience is steady perseverance in your striving to reach your destination. Striving to reach your destination without being retarded by failure or difficulty on the path. That's patience. That's perseverance. Nothing is going to stop you from blooming. Only through assimilating the right foods does our physical body grow naturally. Just as we are sometimes smarter than our physical body, our spiritual self can be wiser than our ego. So do not submit yourself prematurely to those disciplines based on your vanity or exploitation or greed or wrong motive to destroy your sanity. It's not worth it. Of course, sometimes we need extra measure to keep our health. Similarly, if our spiritual growth demands that we take extra measures to keep our health, then we must know what to do. We must not submit ourselves to those who make claims. Rather, we must consult with those who have had long preparation to help us, whose lives reflect the teaching of the great ones. Teachers whose sacrificial labor testifies to their sincerity. As I was just sharing this with you, I recalled back in the day when a meditation teacher, a spiritual teacher who was a student of Yogananda, and we were all thrilled, to find such a person in our town. So I found him, some of us found him anyway. He started teaching me meditation. He was teaching me, and I didn't realize it, Kundalini meditation. And one day, I was experiencing this energy going up and down the spine, but it was very cold, and it was not hot. It was a cold energy. And immediately my metabolism dropped, and I was really uncomfortable. And this was in Florida, which is a very hot state. Okay, so I sent a note to my real teacher, and he just screamed at me, cease and desist what you are doing. And then later when we talked, he told me what was happening. So, I became a victim due to my ignorance. Here's another story. 3 boys once went to a teacher for counseling. They were so skinny that they looked like skeletons. The teacher asked them, "What has happened to you?" And they said, "We are losing weight, and we cannot find out why. Can you help us?" After talking with them for a while, the teacher discovered that the boys were students of Kundalini Yoga. They said, "We are working very hard to raise our Kundalini." When the teacher asked them to look at the result of their practices, they could not see any harm. The teacher explained that you have burned so many fuses in your system that you are becoming skeletons. Do you still think these practices are helping you? Well, the boys responded by saying, "Don't you believe that Kundalini exists?" The teacher worked with those boys for several months until they were normalized. The teacher said he was not against Kundalini, but was against anything that is misused by those who have no real knowledge of it, who have no knowledge of how to gain control over things when they go wrong. And see, this is what happened to me with that meditation teacher, was teaching me wrong practices. I should have recognized something was amiss because that teacher was going blind. Yeah, very interesting realization. So the teacher said, yes, he believed and believes that Kundalini exists, but don't misuse the energy. It's just like an electrician knows what he's doing. He saves not only his own life if he knows what he is doing, and he is doing all the things electricians do, and he safely practices what an electrician safely practices, then he's safe, and the people he's installing this and that in are going to be safe as well. It is not beneficial to produce atomic waste if there is nowhere to dump it safely. If you know how to do things, when to do them, why you should do them, and if you have control over them when they go wrong, there is nothing then that you cannot do, so long as you do not violate the freedom and well-being of others. So the boys had not only lost weight, they had also lost their ability to think correctly. Lost their ability to think correctly. They had lost their powers of reasoning and logic through practicing something that was not supervised or managed intelligently. There was a similar experience with several girls who were under the instruction of a certain guru, using meditation to try to open their third eye. They were experiencing terrible headaches, but refused to stop meditation. Eventually, when their pain increased and they could no longer stand it, they dropped that kind of meditation. But they suffered for many years afterwards. There was a woman who ended up in a mental facility as she had become possessed by engaging in prolonged hours of wrong meditation. She had been meditating for 2 to 4 hours daily. When she decided to follow my advice, it was too late. A psychiatrist entered her into a psychiatric ward in the hospital. Years later, she called me and we chatted for a while. She said she wanted to begin some spiritual disciplines, but I explained that it would be better for her now to take some courses in nature, learn how to cultivate a garden, learn photography, or even take some computer courses. All of those activities would be grounding for her. Her prolonged meditations and being placed on psychotropic drugs would be dangerous. Now it would be dangerous, see, for her to return to meditation exercises. We must not violate nature. Nature knows the right time for blooming. At certain times when a student is ready and the real teacher is there, daring steps then can be taken to prepare leading disciples and equip them with flowering centers and senses. But all of this is done under the watchful supervision of a real teacher. If the student is unresponsive to the teacher, if a student is unresponsive to the teacher, then such steps cannot be taken. Right meditation is thinking in the light of the highest good for ourselves and for others. So after right meditation, then the person, the meditator, is going to discover how they can take those beautiful ideas and impressions and inspirations from the result of contact, their contacts in meditation, and give these ideas to humanity as a service, see, to humanity. Next, meditation is dangerous if it is done immediately after sex. Oh boy, this causes a lot of problems in marriages. Well, maybe that was true 30 years ago. Now people are having sex in high school and college before marriage. So let's not bring in the marriage thing. Let's just say, okay, that meditation is dangerous if it is done immediately after having sex, married or not. And why? And this is the answer. Sex depletes nervous energy in the body. It depletes nervous energy in the body. The body needs at least 6 hours of sleep. And you know why? To withstand the pressure of meditation. You must have 6 hours of sleep to withstand the pressure of meditation, at least 6 hours of sleep. Those who meditate immediately after having sex expose themselves to various nervous, mental, and heart disorders. Nervous, mental, and heart disorders. Their senses, like hearing and especially sight, are going to weaken. So after sex, you must relax or sleep. We tell our meditation students also not to have sex during the 7 days of each full moon or each solar festival for the same reason. Next, meditation is dangerous if it leads you to the astral plane, if it leads you to daydreaming, to fantasizing, to hallucination. You must be very careful to avoid the astral plane, to bypass it and focus your consciousness in the mind. Many people think that if they see faces if they see figures, if they see colors, or if they hear voices, then they believe that they've had a very good meditation. This is absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. These are signs that the person is becoming trapped in the astral plane. And my experience with students that are going through this, and I give them hints and suggestions and warnings, but they don't listen. They don't hear. And the reason is because their ego is controlling them. The events and entities on the astral plane are beginning to control them. And we believe in freedom, right? Particularly in this country, freedom is a precious commodity. And boy, we can use it to the nth degree, and nobody can take our freedoms away. But you see how stupid that is? It's leading them in the wrong direction. But their ego and vanity is so strong that they're unresponsive to the teacher's direction. When you enter the mental plane, you deal purely with meaning, plan, purpose, cause, and effect, thoughts, and ideas. However, it is possible to see geometrical formations full of meaning that are related to your seed thought. During meditation, you must neglect or reject any intruder who tries to teach you, an intruder that tries to explain to you, or an intruder that will give you messages. You see, this is what happened with the young woman I told you about who was meditating 2 to 4 hours daily and finally had to be placed in a mental facility. She had become a victim of astral entities. This is how mediumship starts. Mediums are victims of astral entities who play with us, who play with humans. And then eventually, over time, they make them victims of their vampirism. Unfortunately, I have so many stories of events like this. I remember this and other stories. As I'm sharing these stories, other stories are flooding in, memory. Oh my gosh, yes, I remember that. There was this one wonderful woman, she and I, this was back when our kids were in high school, and my oldest son was competing in, because he played the double bass, the string bass, that big string bass. And we had gone to the middle of the state for a competition, and we were chaperoning all the kids that were there. There's about 20 kids that were going to be performing. And I realized something was off with her, with this other mother. And subsequently, as a result of our chaperoning experience, which was wild, I won't go into that. But anyway, we became friends. And as I got to know her, I began to realize that she was a meditator, meditating for 2 to 4 and then 6 hours a day. Finally, this entity that was the intruder that was corresponding, communicating with her, had her leave her family. She had 3 children and a husband. She left them because she was going to save the world. This intruder told her, this is your purpose for the rest of your life. You are to go out and to proselytize to the world to save humanity. And she did. A year later, she was put in a psychiatric institution. There's so many stories. It's very, very real. So you can imagine my concern when I am giving hints and suggestions and sometimes a direct order that says, nah. The response is, nah. It's so foolish. It's so foolish. It's not worth our mental health. It's not worth destroying our nervous system. We have plenty of time. Let's not destroy our lives. So that woman, the woman that I initially talked about, well, her husband called me. Her husband was a medical doctor, interestingly enough. He said that his next door neighbor was a psychiatrist. And both of them were trying to talk to the wife to make sense with her, to let her know that, she was not in her right mind. And nothing was working. She would not respond to them. So he asked me, the husband, medical doctor, asked me to come immediately, and I did. The poor woman explained to me that the previous owner of their home had died and had begun speaking to her, the intruder. He was speaking to her. And this woman, the way she was telling me the intruder's stories, she shared the stories the intruder was giving her, and it was a lovely entity. But what happened is that once the wife began to trust this entity that had died, that had owned her home, then the door was open and other entities came in and began to communicate with her as well. I asked her how all of this had happened. She said she was meditating day and night. She did not trust her husband and the neighbor. The husband explained that he and the neighbor were going to institutionalize her, but she was so afraid and distrusting of both of them that she was screaming and going crazy and running all over the house and outside in the yard, refusing to cooperate with him. So finally the doctor called me, begrudgingly called me. I went over there to their home, calmed her down, and talked to her, and I just, look, your husband loves you. He really, really loves you. Trust him. So about an hour and a half later, she let them call the 911, and the ambulance came and hauled her off to the mental part of the hospital. So she was admitted into the institution. So it is, now on the other side, it is possible to receive impressions, telepathic messages, and inspiration from higher sources through meditation. But such genuine communication starts only after you come in conscious contact with your higher self and consciously begin to function on the higher mental plane. And this is not an easy thing to do. It takes years of practice. So it is very dangerous to be caught in the astral plane, because it is very likely that astral entities will eventually stick to you and obsess and possess you for many lives. For many lives. To avoid this situation, you must bypass the astral bodies and establish equilibrium and balance in your whole mental plane by daily trying to focus your consciousness on specific or scientific subjects and orienting yourself to the process of thinking and concentration and synthesizing. Next, meditation is dangerous if you do not handle in the right way the energies you generate or evoke while meditating. I'm going to repeat this. Meditation is dangerous if you do not handle in the right way the energies you generate or evoke while meditating. Meditation should be done as a service, and the energies released must be used and directed in your day-to-day life, in your relationships, for constructive purposes. Your family and your social life must feel the effects of your incoming energies, ideas, and visions. It will affect your family. It will affect your social life. Thus, a circulation will come into being. New ideas, visions, energies, and revelations must circulate within you. And in this process, it brings changes, integration, and right relationships in them as your field of influence expands. The inflow of ideas and visions and revelations and energies must increase, and you become a transforming transmitter without creating any blockages in your system. See, this is why you have a teacher. If a teacher sees that some blockages are taking place, that your health is deteriorating, that your balance and equilibrium is no longer there, it's not a, just listen to the teacher and follow the instructions. But so oftentimes by this time, the person's ego and vanity is so inflated that they think the teacher is full of hot air, and they continue on, and their problems continue on. Oftentimes it's slow, and the teacher has the ability, if that teacher knows the student or knows the meditator, will recognize it immediately and then start giving hints, then start giving suggestions, because it is subtle until it's not, until it's too late. And blockages in your system begin to take hold and begin to control your life. So those who start meditation must carefully consider 2 points: when and how to use incoming energies, and how to create expanding fields of service. When and how to use incoming energies, and how to create expanding fields of service. If the incoming energies are used by your urges and drives, by your glamours and illusions, or for your separative interests, very soon you're going to ruin yourself and damage your contact with higher spheres of light. Isn't that interesting? People create enemies against the teaching and belittle the teaching when the person does not demonstrate it or exemplify it in their own life. Thus, they block the path of others and condition others to block their own path in the future. Don't you see that person who over there is just there in the teaching? They're wacko. Yeah, who wants to be on that path? See, that's what happens. Any hindrance a person creates for others becomes in time a hindrance on their own path. Oh, it's so sad, isn't it? I was thinking of one person that really became so fanatical, and we were good friends. And I said, stop it. You are becoming a fanatic with your beliefs. Stop it. You don't know what you're talking about. You're no longer a friend of mine. Well, You should see that person now. Family won't talk to them, won't have anything to do with them. I can't begin to tell you what they think of me. Yeah, it's so sad. I guarantee you next week will be a happier talk, okay? But this is so necessary. Weeds in the garden must be removed before planting flowers, right? If you're a gardener, right? You say, oh, look at that garden full of weeds. Hey, I can make it prettier by putting flowers in and leaving the weeds. Guess what wins out? The weeds. The flowers die. Weeds in the garden must be removed before planting flowers, or else the weeds will grow and use the flowers as a target, eventually killing them. Next, patience. If you lack patience, do not start meditation. It is dangerous to try and run farther or longer than you are able in an attempt to obtain quick results, or become a master or a Tara in a few months or a few years. The process of transformation is slow, and you must not strain yourself beyond your limits. Meditation must be taken very seriously and with patience. Speed in spiritual discipline makes a person develop spiritual selfishness. Let me say this again. Speed in spiritual discipline makes a person develop spiritual selfishness. They tend to undervalue other people and live in vanity. It is better to work for a long time and build a strong foundation rather than hurrying to build on a weak foundation. Meditation is very dangerous if you are using drugs, marijuana, alcohol, or tobacco. Meditation cannot be safely carried on if your brain is in a polluted condition. Many fuses will burn out in your brain if you engage yourself in meditation and still use drugs, marijuana, alcohol, or tobacco. It is known that alcohol can lead you to the astral plane. I do not care what you say otherwise. You cannot say that I am a master, I am a Tara, I am above these things. I can drink and it does not affect me. You cannot say that and be honest with yourself. At some point, usually in your 60s, at some point it is going to backfire on you. It can lead you to the astral plane. If you drink alcohol, if you use drugs, pot, and so forth, and if you do not meditate, then such vices will not have as drastic effect upon your brain. The more you refine yourself, the more sensitive you become. Things that once did not affect you, this is if you are meditating, things that once did not affect you will affect you as you refine your consciousness. Things that once did not affect you will affect you as you refine your mechanism. This is why an average person can escape from the serious consequences of their vices, while a more advanced person pays heavily for them. A person who drinks alcohol may look healthy, even well into their 60s. But if a person drinks alcohol and at the same time follows a routine of meditation, they're going to develop serious problems with their mental and physical health. And let me close with this, and we'll have a couple of minutes for questions. Meditation is an excellent device through which you can radiate your beauty, spreading healing energy, and inspire and challenge people to proceed on the path of their evolution. But it must be done in the right way. Okay, so do you have questions? I guess I better say it. Do you have any questions? Gabe.
Why would somebody want to meditate for 6 hours? Are they, seriously, are they looking for a phenomenon? Or
Change.
experiences?
Oftentimes they're spiritual people, they're good people, they're on a spiritual path, and they just want to do something with the humdrum life that they have. So it's like with, what is a homeopathic cell salt? You know, we're told more does not strengthen the cell salt. Usually less is better. And so they have a first experience in meditation for 15 minutes and, oh, this is really great. I really feel good. Let me stretch this to 30 minutes. Let me expand my meditation time to an hour and look at what's happening with me. It's like this one woman same thing happened to her, first 15 minutes, then 30 minutes, then an hour. And then she became a medium and was channeling Anna Besant. She was a good friend of mine, and her children were good friends of my 2 boys. I cannot tell you the years of consequences that gave to my kids. Just being in contact with them, it was horrible. So ego, vanity, wanting to be somebody special, somebody different, and then they take that specialness out, make themselves sit on, what is that fairy tale, the spider, and she sits on a little tuft and
Little Miss Muffet.
Little Miss Muffet, yes. Thank you.
That was way back.
Yeah. And pretty soon, wow, look at me. I'm a meditator. I can quote Bailey. I can quote Torko. I can quote Agni Yoga. Look at how much I know. Sad. Anybody else? Yeah.
If we're starting to meditate and all of a sudden we hear a weed eater or the music next door, should we just stop?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get away from noise nowadays.
It's very hard. It's very hard. The question was, if we're in the process of or engaged in meditation and we hear a weed eater or rock music or all this noise going on, should we stop? Yes, because you heard it. See, it immediately distracted you.
Yeah. How to get away from noise.
Right. Any other questions?
I have a friend that does meditate for an hour or two. She's with a group, like a yogi from India, and they do a lot of mantrams over and over and over. And I think she thinks that she's helping the world, you know, when things are in a bad place like they are now.
Mm-hmm.
She spends so much time meditating, several hours throughout the day, what do you do, like, as far as a
How
friend?
old is she?
She's a little younger than me, so in her sixties, late sixties.
Okay. She may have, a strong enough physical body and good enough karma that it's not going to harm her, but it would be exceptional. And
She lives a very pure life, very.
that doesn't make
quiet.
any difference.
Okay.
She still has karma, and you can't do anything, you're not going to save her. It's been my experience, no matter how much I love that person, if they're resistant or non-responsive to my love and compassion, they're not going to change. We had a member in the group many years ago, came into the group, was with us for a few years, and then later left. And she left because of this Indian guru that was in the south of Florida, and she started chanting and drumming, and it got her into trouble. And then she came to me after it was too late. She was found with cancer in her body. And one of her children started following her, doing the same thing. Fortunately, the child listened to me and stopped, but it was too late for her. The damage had been done. So it's just like some people can smoke and live until they're 100 years old. But when they come back in their next lifetime, let's see what happens. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we see these gurus who have, let's say, hundreds of followers, and they're doing these group Kundalini yoga meditations. Is that more impacting these people? Is it worse to do it in a huge group like that?
It is worse. Yeah. It's abnormal. It's not normal. If you pulled a dozen of those people aside and tracked their life, you would see at some point how it will fall into ash.
It's almost as if they become hypnotized, and whatever this guru tells them to do, they do.
Mm. Yeah, so if that's not going to happen if they are meditating in the higher self, where you think and you look for cause and purpose. And I'll be talking about this next week. It'll be happier. It'll be a happier time. Not everything will be perfectly roses, but yeah, it'll be, but it'll still be instructional and informational.